So where are we going with this? Well, I came to the position that Suzuki talent education is the nature of it is overwhelmingly rote and does not accommodate for differentiated learning needs in individual students, and therefore predisposes some students, if not a majority of them, towards musical illiteracy, which we've already established is very important for the training of a musician. And as you can see up there on the top left, Suzuki Talent Education is a solely rote curriculum. No context is provided. No significance of a passage is conveyed. It is inherently non-differentiated and doesn't accommodate to different learning styles. The method is asymbolic. It does not use any symbols. So, teaching to differentiated learners. If the goal is to teach a thorough music literacy, then lesson plans that we devise as teachers and educators must accommodate children that learn through bodily intelligence, oral intelligence, verbal, logical. We have to think of as many vehicles of communication as we can to effectively convey our message to them about music. So first we need to do this by dispelling the myth of talent, that some students and some children are naturally born and gifted musicians. The idea of a natural born musical talent is just incredibly outdated and has no veracity, no scientific data to back it up. Research examining the relationship between cognitive skills and music, or vice versa, is largely inconclusive, so no hope there. Studies examining capacities for the analysis of music in both music and non-music students of various age levels concluded that all students were capable of similar concepts of higher order structure, musical ability aside. So that being said, all students are start off on the same level playing field. It's their natural grasp into certain intelligence and certain differentiated fields, and our methods of conveyance that seems to be a large contributing factor here. Whoa, flying paper. A symbolist presentation method is incredibly non-comprehensive. Studies by Hetland have also been done to examine the effects of visual reinforcement in the music lessons of small children, and they have found that the content of the lesson was more thoroughly absorbed by students when a system, even a very elementary or rudimentary system of notation was presented. Whether that system was for form or rhythm or melody, it was just more, it underscored the point for the students of what they learned. Adequate music reading skills seem to create an advantage for performers, says Lehman and MacArthur of 2002, and accordingly, in their research, it also was proposed to be a predictor of future performance skills. We also have to look at the practices of the individual Suzuki teachers themselves. A lot of studies conducted by the Suzuki organizations and by the JRME and other journals have closely studied individual and class lessons. Robert Duke, in 1999, he observed many different interactions between different types of students and different types of teachers, and he found that teachers were more inclined to use musical terminology with older students, and these students achieved higher than their younger counterparts, with, of course, progress relative to their age. He wasn't using the same set of guidelines for 12th grade students as he was for 2nd grade students. They were weighted statistically. The same study concluded that teacher personality and personal preferences in lesson practices had a significant effect on the goals of students. Active listening or analytical listening seemed to be not a preferred method of these teachers, surprisingly, even though it's a largely rote curriculum. Younger students seem to respond with more success to extroverted teachers. This is an underlying point in the interpersonal skills that Gardner talks about. This little child is in a private Suzuki lesson, and the teacher's obviously encouraging him very much. The bow before and after performance is a tradition of the Suzuki method. But we need to talk about the reliability of a model. In a method that's largely based on the model of one teacher, the validity and accuracy of that model needs to be questioned and met with severe scrutiny. Students respond different to presentation methods, so Duke's research leads us to believe that older students require more criticism and younger students require more performance. Also, younger students, as we've seen before, respond well to positive reinforcement. Older students seem to take criticism better and eventually try harder. Conveying intangible information to students by rote lacks any substantive understanding of what is being performed. Students that associate musical sounds with symbols memorize with more efficiency. This implies that symbols can facilitate the mental organization and recall of conceptual information. So musical passages can be memorized with the aid of visual presentation. Sloboda does a lot of research into music literacy and teaching methods. In his research, he said that musical expression was a very significant factor in determining literacy, music literacy, that is, and a teaching method that provides a context to the lesson and to what the student is learning that day enables students to produce a more vividly expressive piece of music. So it's adding the why to the what they just learned. So here's my conclusion. The combined result of the various studies reviewed supports a music curriculum in which musical information is portrayed through a wide array of vehicles that stimulate all 7 of Gardner's differentiated learning styles, rather than the strictly rote curriculum of Suzuki Talent Education as a means of achieving a developed musical literacy in students. The Suzuki method seems to be largely ineffective as a means of transferring symbolic knowledge, being that it is completely devoid of symbolic knowledge. During some studies that Sloboda conducted, he described a problem that rote educated prodigies often encountered. At some point, they had to merge their formal and informal knowledge of the subject, causing academic stress. And eventually, throughout the life of these children that started out as virtuosic and prodigious, their their progress and skills and even motivation to learn declined sharply as they grew older. So this begs the question: why do we separate Why does the Suzuki method separate symbolic from the oral? It simply alienates a differentiated learning style. It pays no regard to different presentation methods, and, like I said, is largely ineffective. The Suzuki method, just to restate what we've covered now, is a rather futile means of increasing musical literacy because it's disconnected from all symbolic meaning, and in students because learning by rote is not an effective way to convey information to students with different needs. So it's after my research, I'm recommending that we as a practice and as educators look more closely into how individual students learn and how they process information cognitively for categorizing and for recall in later situations. And the aims of that should help us more directly relate our teaching methods and presentations towards the needs of students, which will create a more effective classroom strategy. There's a bunch of references. You probably won't read them. And thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing all your presentations. Yeah, man.